Hi, third grade learners. It's Miss Krause from Hutchinson Elementary School. Today we are going to focus on Learning Target 406. We are going to measure the lengths of various objects to the nearest whole, half, or quarter inch, and we're going to organize the measurements on a line plot. Now, we are going to look at a ruler first in the U.S. customary system of measurement, and we're going to look at measuring to the nearest inch. You can see each of these is an increment between numbers of 1 inch, and you can see that there are 12 inches on this ruler. And you know, that reminds me of my favorite joke. Would you like to hear it? I hope so. Why isn't your nose 12 inches long? Well, it's not 12 inches long because then your nose would be a foot. Get it? Because there are 12 inches in a foot. So what we are going to do is we're going to take a look at this ruler and we're going to measure the piece of string to the nearest inch. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take that piece of string and I'm going to move it up to our ruler. And you're going to see that this piece of string starts at the 0 and it's going to go between the 7 and the 8. Now, when we're measuring to the nearest half inch or to the nearest inch, we're going to look for the half-inch point. So I always draw a line right between those two numbers halfway. So this is 7, 7.5, and 8. Because it is before this half-inch mark, we're going to go back to the 7 so you can see that it's 7 inches. Now, if it would have come at the half or after, we would have gone up. Let's try it again. This piece of string, once again, to the nearest inch. So I'm going to move that piece of string up, starts at the 0. Here's the 4. This would be right about there, would be 4.5, and it's on this side, so it's going to go up to the 5-inch mark. To the nearest inch would be 5 inches. Now, for this one, we're now going to go to the nearest half inch. Now, when you look at this, you're going to see that there's 0 and 1, and there's that half inch we had just talked about. So we are going to move that piece of string up, starting at the 0, and you're going to see it goes past the 10. Here's the 11. There's the half inch. So the measurement for this one would be 10.5 inches. Let's try it again. Once again, I'm highlighting what I'm measuring to, nearest half inch. So I'm going to move that piece of string up. Here's the 6, here's the 7, and here is the 6.5. Now you're going to see it's between these two, but do I go to 6 or 6.5? Well, once again, I'm going to find that halfway point right between those two lines, and it's going to be right about here. Now that is what is known as a quarter inch. So if it's at the quarter or more, we go up. If it had been less, we would have gone back. So you're going to see it's right past there. So I'm going to go to the 6.5 inch as my measurement to the nearest half inch. Now, when we're measuring to the nearest quarter inch, it's a little more difficult. So let's take a look at this anchor chart. So you're going to see here's a ruler and here's the 2. And here's the 3. Now it's broken down into 1, 2, 3, 4 equal parts. So this is 2 inches, 2.25, 2.5, or 2 2/4 because it's broken into 4 pieces. 2 3/4 or 3. Now these individual little pieces are even smaller parts of an inch that we don't have to know yet, but we can break inches into eighths or even sixteenths to be more precise. So when we're measuring to the nearest inch, we're going to see the closest inch that comes before it. So we're going to write the number that comes before the line. Then what we're going to do is we'll find the halfway point, which would be the half-inch point or the 2/4. Now, if it comes before that, we're going back to the quarter. If it comes after, we would go up to 2 3/4. And the same would find the halfway point. If it's before the half, you go back. Halfway point or further, you go ahead. So let's take a look at this example. We're going to measure to the nearest quarter inch. So here is our piece of string. Let's move it on up. And so here we have the 4 inches And there's the 5. So we're going to write down the number that comes before the end of the line. So that would be my 4. Now, here is my 4.5. And the line goes to here. So that's going to be 4 1/4. 4 1/4 or 4 1/4. It's just another way of saying it. So now we've learned about measuring. So now let's go into that second part of line plots. A line plot uses X's above a number line to show how often a value occurs. We learned about bar graphs and pictographs to organize data points. Well, this is just another way of doing so. This is an example of a line plot. And you're going to see that the title is called Number of Siblings, which are brothers or sisters. And then we've got all of the different numbers, 1 through 7. And the question says, how many people surveyed or asked a question reported having 2 siblings? So what we're going to do is we're going to go down to the number line, and right there is my number 2. So now I'm going to come above it, and I'm going to count the X's because each X represents an answer. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it would be 5 people said they have 2 siblings. Let's try another one. How many people surveyed reported having more than 2 siblings? So that means we're not going to look at the 1 or the 2. We're going to look at 3 or more. So we're going to start here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we counted all the ones that were above the 2. So I came up with 6 people. And that is my answer. Now we're going to take that same way to create a line plot for another piece of data, and this is the vowels in the first and last name. Now a vowel is a letter that is an A, an E, an I, O, or U. So somebody said, okay, everybody write down your name and count how many vowels you have in your name. And then if you have 2, raise your hand. And 1 person raised their hand. And okay, how many have 3 vowels? And there were 2 people. And so he asked this question the whole way up to 7 or more vowels. And then they took that data to make a line plot. So the first thing we're going to do is we have to give the line plot a title. So let's take a look at this tally chart. Vowels in first and last name. Let's call it number of vowels in first and last name. Makes sense, right? Then we're going to have to draw the line and label it. So there's my line. And we're going to label it with all the numbers of vowels. So 2 the whole way through 7. Now there was none that was just 1 vowel. So we're starting at 2. And then we're going to count, and you're going to see that there were 2 people that had 1. So we're going to come down here, or I'm sorry, there was 1 person that had 2. So we're going to come down here and we're going to put 1 X above that result. Then we're going to say how many people had 3 vowels, and there were 2. So we're going to put 2 X's. Well, 4 was 5, 6, 7. So we're going to put 7 X's. And then 5 vowels, there were 8 people. So we're going to put 8 X's. 6 people had 3, so we'll put 3. And 7 or more, there were 2, so we're going to put 2. So now there we have our line plot. And I can easily look at this and see that the most popular answer was 5 vowels, and the least popular was 2 vowels. Using that same data, how many people responded to the survey? Well, that's easy. All I have to do is count the number of X's. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. And if I look, letter C is 23 students. And then it says how many people have fewer than 4 vowels in their name. So I highlighted fewer than 4. So that means I'm not going to be looking at 4. I'm only looking at the fewer than 4, which would be 2 or 3. So I've got 1, 2, 3. So my answer would be letter A, 3 students. Now let's go back to our measurement. And Tyler's parents measure and record his height each year on his birthday. Do your parents do that for you? I know mine did. So we had a doorway between our living room and our kitchen. And my parents would make my sisters and brothers and I stand against the wall, and then they would take a marker or a pen or a pencil, and they would take that and they would draw a line right at the top of our head, and then we would move aside and they would put our name and they would put our date, and then we could see how much we grew, and it was so much fun. Do your parents do that to you? I bet they do. I think all parents do it. It must be a mom and dad thing, right? So anyway, this chart shows the annual growth between each birthday. So that means if we look over here, between the time he was born and his first birthday, when he got to smash that cake and get icing all over his face, he grew 4 inches. And then between his first and his second birthday, he grew 2 3/4 inches. That doesn't mean he was only 2 3/4 inches tall. It means he grew that much more. And between his second and his third birthday, 2.5. And they kept track the whole way up until he was 10 years old. Now, let's take that data and let's make a line plot, shall we? I think we should. So we're going to go ahead and call it Tyler's growth each year. I'm going to go ahead and draw my line, and each measurement goes up by 1/4 inch. So I'm going to go ahead and start with 1 3/4 because that was the smallest amount that he grew. And we're going to go the whole way up to greater than 2 3/4. So the first line point is 1 3/4. So I come over here and I see 2 places that's listed. So I'm going to put 2 X's. 2 inches, I look over and I only see that once. 2 1/4, I see it twice. There's there and there. 2 1/2, 3 times he grew that much. 2 3/4, just once. And greater than 2 3/4, looks like just this one time. And so we're going to put 1. And so there we have the line plot of his growth each year. Another example, Mrs. Talbot dropped a few paper clips on each of her students' desks and told them to measure each one, and then create a line plot to show his or her results. Meg was given these paper clips. Draw a line plot for her. Well, Meg already went ahead and she measured her paper clips. So these ones were 2 inches, these ones were 1 1/2, and these ones were 1 inch. So let's help her draw her line plot. First thing we have to do is what? You're right. We have to label it. Let's call it Meg's paper clips. We're going to draw our number line and we're going to label it. So we're going to start with the 1 and we're going to go up to the bigger. So we've got 1, 1 1/2, 2, 2 1/2. So we're going to start with 1 inch. So here's my 1 inch. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm going to put 5 X's. 1 1/2, there's 1, 2, 3. So I'm going to put 3 X's. 2 inches, there are 2. And 2 1/2, I don't see any, do you? So let's leave that blank. And this next question is what we just did. Why aren't there any X's above the final measurement? Well, hello, there weren't any paper clips that measure 2 1/2 inches, so you leave it blank. Let's answer this question. Can you make an equation that shows the difference? Now, I always teach my 3rd graders the difference means to subtract. The difference between the paper clips that measured 2 inches or more and the paper clips that measured less than 2 inches. So 2 inches or more is going to be here. And then less than 2 inches would be these ones. So let's see. We've got 2 on this side. And we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So now I know I've got 8 and 2. To find the difference, my number model would be 8 minus 2. And 8 minus 2 is, say it out loud. You're right, it is 6 paper clips. Now, let's finish up our learning target by applying what we just learned. We're going to use the ruler to measure each pencil to the nearest inch. And then we're going to use X's to plot the pencil's lengths on the line plot. So we're going to use this ruler. So let's measure the first one. And let's see, we need to move that back just a little tiny bit, but it's still going to have the same measurement of 4 inches. So you're going to see that I placed an X on the 4-inch mark. Pencil number 2, you can see the edge of the pencil isn't at the end of the ruler, but at the 0. And it's almost at 6. So there's an X on the 6. Pencil 3 is close to 8, so there's an X on the line plot for 8. Pencil number 4 is closest to 5, so there's a point there. Pencil number 5, it's close to 6 inches, so I put another X on top of here. And pencil 6 is closest to 8. So right away, we can see that the most popular lengths were a tie between 6 and 8, and there weren't any that measured 7. So third grade, there you have it, Learning Target 406. You learned how to measure the lengths of various objects to the nearest whole, half, or quarter. And then you organize the measurements on a line plot. Well done, third grade. Now let's move on to some practice.